Okay, everybody, let's take it from the top.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Hi-ho, everybody, and welcome back to D Plus Us, the show about all things Disney. I'm one of your hosts, Griffin and Griffy T-Pad, and with me, as always, is the wonderful, the amazing Mr. Mitch George. Hi-ho. Arg. All of pirate things.
Fish are friends, not food.
Wrong movie.
No, it's the wrong movie. I guess pirates are fair game.
Yeah, I mean, fish are fair game for anyone, really, at this point. Weird start to what's going to be inevitably.
That's one of the. I mean, the thing with fish, like you gotta know how to cook it. Like fish can be really tough. I mean, you could go the easy route. You know, you just buy some pre-made fish sticks or something. You throw them in an air fryer. You deep fry them
like
yourself.
Cheating, honestly.
It is, but my biggest cheat code, honestly, and you know what, everyone can take this recipe to the bank before we actually start this episode, is maple glazed salmon in the air fryer.
Ooh, that's good.
So you just do like a maple soy glaze with some grainy mustard, little bit of Worcestershire if you're in the mood for it. You get that into a Ziploc baggie and you just let it marinate for like 30 minutes to an hour before you actually fry the thing. And it turns out,
dude, for some reason, I still don't own an air fryer. Like, for the amount I cook, I don't own an air fryer, which is something you think I would have at this point, but just nope.
We got an air fryer as a wedding gift, which was weird because we weren't registered anywhere, and you know, asked folks who are going to be generous enough to give us anything to provide flat gifts, aka cards with cash in them.
Yeah.
But we got an air fryer.
Somebody was just like,
started this whole thing.
You got to get an air fryer. Just trust me.
It was like a so-so air fryer, but I went down that rabbit hole. I'm like, oh, this is the brand that I want. It's got the square basket instead of the round basket. It's just
Yeah, I was chatting with my mom the other day, and they my uncle just moved into a new place, and she was like, "Oh, what should I get for a housewarming gift for him?" And she got him an air fryer. So apparently, it's just a thing now.
My mom sent me a text the other day. She's like, "Would this air fryer be good for your sister for Christmas?" And I said no. But it seems like air fryers are on top of people's minds right now. I don't know what it is. I feel like that was like a very 2020 thing, less so a 2024 thing. But here we are, and the air fryer has become a staple, so much so that my French fries from the freezer have goddamn air fryer instructions on them now.
Anyways, I have no good way
Pirates
out
of the Caribbean.
What a weird transition. Hi, folks. Welcome back to the show. I'm Griffin. That's Mitch. We normally talk about Disney things immediately and not air fryers right off the bat. But this is, of course, D Plus Us, the show about all things Disney, where we talk about movies, games, TV shows, theme parks, etc., etc. Anything within the realm to talk about. We hang out here for your enjoyment and chat about it. Bits and pieces
More
of
so
housekeeping. Before we jump into the actual Pirates talk today, first off, holy shit. We mentioned this in one of the last episodes. Recording-wise, recording to actual release is timey-wimey nonsense. It is shocking to me we have not done Pirates yet.
I was going to say, if y'all are not aware, I'm having a child soon. So everything is going to get thrown to the wind, and we'll see how things land.
Pre-recording as much as humanly possible.
We're going to be recording at like 3:30 in the morning my time because I got nothing else to do when I got to wake up and do weird dad shit.
The concern will be when we start recording at 3:30 my time.
It's not so bad. Oh,
not so bad for you.
That's not so bad for me. I'll be up. Like I'll be 2 coffees in at that point. It'll be fine.
Fair enough. Yeah, pieces of housekeeping. Depending on when this goes up, we may or may not have a weekly series going. But hey, we have plenty of awesome weekly series that we have been talking about. Skeleton Crew is one that we may or may not be talking
eventually,
about.
maybe right now, who knows?
If not, go check out the Agatha All Along episode, or go check out some of the other normal episodes. We have plenty of really awesome ones. We probably have one up by now, hopefully from 1 to 2, depending on when this releases.
Around that.
We have some other great episodes
about out in December, so maybe it'd be something about that. And
there's a lot of great movies, though. A lot of our episodes are evergreen, so go check those out and come on back. We are
what
committing.
If it's happening again? That's a thing, right?
We're probably committing though here and now, Mitch. We are committing. We are doing the first 3 Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
And are you only saying that because you did the thumbnails?
No, I made those thumbnails already after deciding this.
Okay. Okay.
We're doing the first three Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
But why not 4 and 5?
4 and 5 suck.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's goddamn right they do. And this isn't actually the first episode of the show about Pirates of the Caribbean. You know that, right?
I mean, we technically have done the Pirates of the Caribbean show.
Behind the Attraction.
Yes.
We did Behind the Attraction, where we talked all about the ride. And I'm sure that's going to come up here as well. But yeah, it's going to be great to dive into these movies.
Mm-hmm. This is the first movie that Disney made. I think it's not the first, but it's the first like major one that got massively popular of making a movie based off of the ride.
Don't let my sister hear you say that, because she is still to this day, and I think this came up before.
I know what you're going to say, and I'm about to get mad at her again.
I don't know what came first, Haunted Mansion or Pirates, but
Haunted
she's
Mansion
obsessed
sucks.
with the Eddie Murphy Haunted Mansion movie. I don't get it. It's a bad movie.
We have an entire episode.
If you are watching this, Griffin will clip this out and put it on TikTok. Haunted Mansion with Eddie Murphy is not a good movie. Watch any other Haunted Mansion material. The Lakeith Stanfield one, the Muppets one, the Behind the Attraction one. Just don't watch the Eddie Murphy one. I love Eddie Murphy. Don't get me wrong. It's just not a very good movie.
We have an entire episode dedicated to how much I hate this movie. Like, this is not a good movie, but you know what is a great movie? Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. Directed by Gore Verbinski, starring Johnny Depp, Jeffrey Rush, Kevin McNally, Orlando Bloom, and Keira Knightley. First off, this was just like a thing in the early 2000s, and still to this day. But why is everybody in this damn movie hot? Everybody in this movie
Keira
is
Knightley was
ridiculously
like 18
hot.
when this movie came out. Wasn't she?
I still stand by it. Like, this is me also saying this for more of the entire franchise. It's very hard for me to think about this first movie in just the single movie. But like,
I do need to correct myself earlier. The Eddie Murphy Haunted Mansion movie came out in November of 2003. This came out in July.
Also, I'm going to quickly check Keira Knightley's age before I keep talking in this.
She was very young when this movie came out. Like,
I mean, all of them were. Like, even Orlando Bloom. Like, you can tell, like were significantly younger than they are now. And there's also like, there's only a 3-year gap in release between the first and second movie, but you can
there's also 15 in Star Wars: The Phantom Menace.
How old is Keira Knightley?
She was born in 1985. She's currently 39 years old. So in 2002, when they were filming this, she'd have been 17. No. Right?
In 2002?
Yeah, 2000. Assuming they filmed in 2002, released in 2003, she was 17 when they filmed this.
So yeah, I would have been 4.
I hate you.
Look, Keira Knightley was like one of my celebrity crushes growing up, so...
Yeah, I was 11 when this movie came out, and she's 7 years older than me.
As was Orlando Bloom.
She was 18 when the movie came out, which...
Yeah, this franchise, like I said, it's kind of hard to separate this one from the other 3, I think. Other 2 from the first 3. 4 and 5 are a little bit
The trilogy of films is one succinct story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, this first one, though, is so good, so succinct, so perfect of knowing exactly what you're getting from beat to beat throughout all of this. We did not need the other movies coming after this for this to still be considered a perfect movie by my account. It has one of the greatest themes in any movie, period. Like,
before we get off of that, a lot of people are like, oh my God, Hans Zimmer, what a masterpiece, what a great score. He is not the sole composer credited on this film.
No,
he co-composed this with Klaus Badelt, and we need to make sure that he gets his flowers as well, because this film doesn't do what it does without this score.
Oh yeah, I think it's He's a Pirate song, but the way the score is integrated into everything, we'll talk in depth about it more in a little bit when we actually go through plot, but some of the fight scenes in particular, the way the music meshes with the actual sound effects of the fight is so good.
So I was quickly scrolling through Wikipedia, as one does when we record the show. This was the 4th highest grossing film of 2003. Can you guess the 3 movies that grossed more than Pirates in 2003?
2003 already is struggling to even think about like my knowledge of movies that came out that year.
I will give you a hint.
I know Finding Nemo came out that year, and I'm pretty sure it grossed more.
There is another Disney movie on that list. Finding Nemo was the second highest grossing movie of 2003.
I'm trying to think what else came out that year.
I'll give you a hint.
2003 would have been...
The other two films are the third film in a trilogy. Or no, this was the second one, actually.
I was going to say, I was thinking of a sequel in my head.
Sorry, one is a sequel and one is the third part of a trilogy.
I'm not going to get any of the other ones, but I'm pretty sure an X-Men movie came out that year.
X2 did come out that year, and it was the 9th highest grossing movie of the year.
Yeah, I got nothing else then.
Let's do 10 through 1. So the 10th highest grossing film was Bad Boys 2. 9 was X2. 8 was The Matrix Revolutions, which I think was that the animated one?
Revolutions?
No, that was the third installment. Those came out this... Okay. We'll get to the top of this list. 7 was Terminator 3: Rise of the Machines. 6 was The Last Samurai. At 5th, the 5th highest grossing film, Bruce Almighty, starring Jim Carrey and Morgan Freeman.
I mean, it's a great movie.
God, it's a weird one to be on this list. Like, a movie like that does not get into the top 10 of 2024. It just goes to show how much film has changed. That there's 2, I guess technically 3, even though, or 4. Pirates is based on a ride, so there are 3 original stories on here, being Last Samurai, Bruce Almighty, and Finding Nemo. But let's finish. 4th was Pirates. 3rd was The Matrix Reloaded. So there are 2 Matrix movies that released the same year, or at least maybe this released like the end of the year and then it carried over.
Interesting.
No, they released both those movies the same calendar year. That's kind of insane.
Yeah, sounds like something Matrix would do.
Number 2 is The Finding Nemo, and the top grossing film of 2003. And the fact you didn't get this, you're probably going to kick yourself. The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King.
Okay, see, I thought that was 2002. So
okay,
so
there's your top 10.
Makes a lot of sense with this movie coming out, like why they really poured so much into this. Welcome to a reoccurring segment for the show, which is Michael Eisner fucking sucks. Michael Eisner did in fact try to shut down production of this movie. And hated how much money was being spent on this movie. To which the producer on it, Jerry Bruckheimer, basically told him, "Yo, you're going up against The Matrix and Lord of the Rings, so you gotta spend the money." This movie did end up having a budget around $140 million, and absolutely they made their money back. We're talking about top 10s in the box office, right? They ended up making $654.3 million in the box office, specifically. Who knows how much money this movie and this movie franchise, frankly, made from DVD sales? It had to have made a ton.
Oh, you have to imagine, like, this was $1 billion project for Disney. And the reason why it spawned numerous sequels, spin-offs that were canceled, reboots that who the fuck knows, attractions in the park that have been rethemed or created originally to match the theming of this film. It's such an iconic property now for Disney, and it's amazing what, like,
even
what's interesting here.
Is iconic. Even the line to get into the ride in Disneyland is iconic.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Winding yourself under New Orleans Square, it's so cool. It was so cool to see that for the first time. I think the biggest thing that Disney did in terms of taking a risk and it paying off here is that this is a pirate movie that it's not a pirate movie. It is a supernatural film that has a pirate wrapping around it. And that was all primarily thanks to Jerry Bruckheimer. When he was brought onto the project, he rejected the scripts that had been written to that point because they were just straight up pirate movies. But he wanted a pirate film that told a different story, which I think is what sets this apart from other films. Like, you think of a pirate movie and you think, Treasure Island, you think things like that are very of the period, but wouldn't necessarily adapt well and be popular with a early 2000s audience. Supernatural was all the craze at that point, not the show.
I'm sorry, did you say Treasure Island?
Didn't I?
Because there's a movie that came out in the early 2000s based off of Treasure Island that was extremely popular with people called Treasure Planet. And it's fantastic and amazing, and we've talked about it, and I will use any opportunity to remind folks how good that movie is.
It's fine. I'm thinking like if you think live action pirate films. You want to interject there?
I mean, live action pirate films. Yeah, fair enough. Like, yeah, it is Treasure Island. Specifically, the one I go to is Muppets Treasure Island because nerd.
Of course you do, because we grew up in the 90s.
That and it's this.
Yeah,
like,
but what this does is it's not a story about pirates, right? It's a story about love. It's a story about lost family. It's a story about this curse and breaking the curse and all of that, the supernatural element. And I think that's what sets it apart and makes it a more engaging story that isn't just, yar, we pirates and have to chase treasure and shit like that. Right?
Yeah, I think first and foremost where this movie thrives is it's about its characters. It is a character-based story. It isn't just pirates for the sake of pirates. Like, within minutes of every character being on screen, you know exactly what that character is about, exactly who that character is, and exactly what that character's motivations are. You see Jack for the first time coming in on this ship that's sailing and eyeing the bigger ships. You know exactly what he wants, exactly what he's going to get, and you may not know exactly how he's going to do it. That's kind of the joy of Jack Sparrow. But you know exactly how it's going to go. With Will Turner, you know exactly what his thing is. You know that his entire character in this first movie is pining for Elizabeth. And vice versa. You know that Elizabeth is pining for adventure and for Will.
Which I think is why it's such a perfect mapping between Jerry Bruckheimer and his way of producing and bringing things to screen and this setting. Because you look at the films that he's been involved with. You look at Top Gun. You look at The Rock, Con Air, like Gone in 60 Seconds, Pearl Harbor. It's these giant set pieces. It's these moments of action interjecting with a lot of these smaller character moments, which I think is what plays so well within the vein of this story in isolation, as well as the trilogy overall. I mean, you can look at 4 and 5 as well, but they're movies that exist.
Mm-hmm. Looking at some of the stuff here, I want to shout out some of the awards that The Curse of the Black Pearl was nominated for, while not winning any. Johnny Depp, take him or leave him, was nominated for Best Actor, and they also received nominations for Best Makeup, Best Sound Editing, Best Sound Mixing, and Best Visual Effects. And I want to talk about that because, like, the visual effects hold up.
Yeah.
The skeletons under the water, in particular, for me, is one where I was like, I thought this was going to look terrible looking back at this when we come back to this movie in 2024. And I'm like, no, this still looks great to me.
It does show its age slightly, but I do think it holds up more or less.
Mm-hmm. I will not be surprised when we go into 2 and 3 and we see what is, to me, some of the best CGI ever. One of the best CGI characters ever. With Davy Jones.
And again, just the set pieces of 2 and 3. You've got you've got the whirlpool fight. You've got
Kraken,
the purgatory, whatever it is. I can't remember what they actually refer to it as. Is it the locker?
Yeah, it's Davy Jones' locker.
Yeah. So like those kind of moments and set pieces and the way they play around with things there is really cool. They do a lot to set up those films and what they're doing with some of the supernatural elements that are introduced here. I do think it kind of goes off the deep end for parts of 3 and then definitely with 4 and 5. But in general, like it's so fun to play in this space, in this world with these characters.
Yeah, well, we're talking about like how it's a supernatural movie. First and foremost, it feels like an Indiana Jones movie, right? Where it has that adventure side to it, and then it goes off the rails a little bit near the end for some wild, crazy shit. Like, it absolutely does that, and I think that is only to the benefit for the first 3 movies. And then they don't really understand what they're trying to do in 4 and 5. Bringing it back to this one specifically, I mean, there's 2 particular, like, amazing things for this. Like, there's obviously the amazing stuff between, like, the individual, like, character moments. The acting we're seeing here, especially from Orlando Bloom, I think, shines the most in this. But
I mean, we talked about 2003 earlier. He was in 2 of the 4 highest grossing films of the year. He bookended one of the greatest film franchises of all time just to kick off one of the most profitable. Like, it's insane the kind of bankability this dude had in the early 2000s.
But what I really want to shout out is the naval combat that they show in this movie. Like, it is so so good. These are physical ships that were built and then CGI built over those ships. Like these ships, in the actual creation of it, were not complete for filming. They kind of CGI'd over a good chunk of it, which is why I think a lot of the CGI holds up, because it's those moments that you're looking at it and you're not thinking about it. Yeah, that is just a ship in the sea, and it's like, no, that's a redressed barge, essentially, that you're seeing. I wish it still existed. I wish Disney didn't take it offline, but they used to have this show called Prop Culture. And there was a Pirates of the Caribbean episode on it. And it's so cool to see some of that stuff. Some of it is still there in St. Vincent where they filmed this. Like, it is fascinating to see how they planned this, how they did the swords for this movie, how they built the ships, how they CGI'd the ships, how they handled the pistols. It is a genuine 1760 pistol that Jack has throughout this movie. Like, they built that. They built the coins. That treasure chest ended up on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. Like,
I mean, Jack Sparrow ends up on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride.
I'm talking like that physical prop they use in the movie.
Oh no,
is
right.
there? But yeah, I mean, this movie ended up becoming so popular that they brought Jack into the story of the ride, and now he's synonymous there. Like, there is no better way to describe this movie than just an absolute cultural zeitgeist.
It's just fun. Like, there's nothing groundbreaking about it. It's not like this is a cinematic masterpiece in the ways of all the movies that you and I talked about last week that I haven't seen. Which I should probably start working through that list, but we'll get to that later. I can't really watch Scarface with a baby on me.
Would not recommend, no.
No, but it's one of those things of like, this was such a cultural moment with this movie coming out and this franchise starting, and just everyone's terrible impressions of Johnny Depp, which was just his sort of pseudo impression of Keith Richards, so much so that they cast him as his dad in the third movie. Like, right. It's just the kind of cultural significance this film has had cannot be understated, and it's fun. It makes you enjoy watching this movie until you think, depending on where you fall in the Johnny Depp is a piece of shit conversation, can make you feel one way or another, because a lot of that stuff came out after this film released. But this film on its own, as an artistic piece, it's just fun. It's a good time.
Yeah, I think this is one where I'm able to kind of... There's a lot of projects where I'm not able to separate the two, and there's a lot where you shouldn't separate the two, i.e. Harry Potter.
Cough, cough, Harry Potter. Cough, cough.
I'm not even going to cough that. Fuck you, J.K. Rowling. Like, this is one where I am able to separate it, because I do think that, like, as fun of a character as Jack Sparrow is, Jack is just one part of why this franchise is amazing. There's so many moving parts as to why I love this franchise. Jack, to me, kind of feels like an Indiana Jones, or like a Max in the Mad Max series of, yeah, you're technically the protagonist of this series, but you're very much a vessel to also get us to all of these other stories that are happening within the world. Like, Elizabeth and Will are the reason you watch these first three movies, and I stand by that.
You're not wrong. I mean, that might also be the reason why you watch, what was it, the fifth one?
The fifth one, yes, with their kids.
Okay.
With the crazy reveal at the end that it's Barbossa's daughter and Will and Elizabeth's son.
This is a weird movie, man. I really don't want to talk about it, but I feel like we're going to get to it eventually. Eventually, we have to run out of content on Disney Plus to talk about.
It's almost impossible. By the time we're running out of content, we're probably done recording this show, frankly.
You heard it here first. We run out of content, the show ends.
Talking about the show, let's talk about the movie, though, beat by beat, going through this thing, because there's so many great characters in this. We're going to start this movie, though, on the ship, the Dauntless, where Lieutenant Norrington and his crew are sailing, presumably from London over to the Caribbean. Governor Weatherby Swan. Never do I think you actually hear his full name in this movie.
No.
But Governor Swan and his daughter Elizabeth are there. Everyone's sailing, and they come across a shipwreck with a little boy on it. This little boy turning out to be Will Turner. Elizabeth sees the gold medallion around his neck, seeing that it's a pirate medallion, and quickly steals it to make sure that, they don't fuck over Will. We get a quick shot of a ship absolutely set ablaze. And then we get the wonderful, wonderful thing that is a weird 8-year time skip to Port Royal. Norrington is about to be promoted to Commodore. There's a whole promotion ceremony, and Jack Sparrow shows up in Port Royal in the most badass way possible to represent this character. Like I said, you immediately know what this guy's about. We've got Will, who is now a blacksmith, making a sword for Governor Swan to give to Norrington. We've got Elizabeth in the corset, with just some fantastic, hilarious jokes around this corset throughout this movie, by the way. Right off the bat, of
odd in hindsight, just given, I don't know. It feels like a weird thing to focus on at the time, and I think feels weirder now.
Maybe it's because I spend enough time around Ren fairs where I'm I know friends who go full corset for that stuff and are I love how it looks for this, but God, I hate breathing in this thing. Because that is the usual joke you get from corsets is, oh, it looks great, but God, I cannot breathe.
Yeah.
Anyways, Jack is up to Jack shenanigans, trying to steal a ship, and essentially just kind of fucking with these two guards there. Elizabeth passes out at the ceremony and falls off a cliff into the ocean while she just happens to be wearing the medallion, which emits a pulse, sending word to the crew of the Black Pearl. Jack rescues her.
Seems weird that this curse is just giving them all of these clues on how to break it. You'd think it'd be harder than that, but I understand suspension of disbelief, but that's oddly convenient.
I think it's more the fact that they've already been there is dozens of years that it's been or I guess it's not that long, but there's been years of them searching for this stuff that we didn't see to at this point where they're fuck it, this is literally the last piece. Just here you go.
Here's your MacGuffin. Go nuts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jack saves her.
Like I said, it's not a perfect film. There's weird shit that they do just to get to the plot, but it's still fun.
Oh yeah.
As an 11-year-old kid, I had a blast watching this thing.
Oh yeah, I grew up loving these movies and loving pirates, partially because of these movies. Yeah, Jack rescues Elizabeth, being an absolute badass still. But Norrington tries to arrest him. Jack runs off, eventually encountering Will in the blacksmith shop, and they have the first of many amazing sword fights between these two. God, these two never stop fighting.
No, but that's fine. Because, it's really interesting, these two characters. The dichotomy of skill, I guess is one way to put it. You look at an actor of Orlando Bloom's caliber and the fact that he trained to do, stage fighting for 3 of the greatest films ever made. And then you've got, blah, 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 blah.
But it also very much speaks to their characters of Will is very much a controlled human being. He is very specific in how he goes about things, where Jack is very loose, very figuring it out as he goes, and you see that in their fight choreography. But one of my favorite things here is when that theme is playing over the fight, and the clashes of the sword are timing up with the music.
It's so good.
It's so great.
Whether that was choreographed or edited or both, it's just you can't script it any better than that.
Or the fact that they fight a few separate times throughout this movie, and every single time Jack wins, and every single time he wins by quote unquote cheating. But it's also very much teaching Will a lesson of these are not fair fights. It is a mistake to think that this is a fair fight.
Yeah. Well, it's very much you see Will's upbringing as an orphan. He ends up as a blacksmith. Everything is very by the book. It's very structured. He understands his place by calling Elizabeth Miss Swan at least one more time. as to their little repartee that they had earlier.
Also taking
And-
the jabs of like he was not the one to make the sword. It was the drunk blacksmith who definitely did not make the sword.
And you've got, Jack Sparrow here just kind of flying by the seat of his pants, full improv, full comedic acting, but at the same time, it's effective because he's been a pirate for the last, 30 years or whatever it is.
But you also see a little bit of that humanity too, of him being like, this shot is not meant for you. If I have to, I will do it, but I do not want to do this. Do not make me do this.
Also, knowing the context of that, there's no way that shot was ever meant for him.
Oh yeah, there's no way Jack ever would have fired. He was just trying to get out of a jam.
Exactly.
But Jack eventually gets knocked out by the blacksmith, who of course gets all the credit.
As one does. One person does all the work and the boss gets all the credit. That doesn't sound familiar at all.
I love the corporate world. Yeah, they throw him in prison. That night, the crew of the Black Pearl attacks Port Royal and absolutely just decimate the town. In wonderful, stunning kind of reference to that original attraction, right? Of the moment the pirates are like taking over the town in the ride versus this. It's so fun. It's so perfect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as someone like I'm trying to think. Like my first trip to Walt Disney World wasn't until a few years after this came out. So I went into this with no frame of reference for the ride. And it's, as an adult, being able to map those things out has been fun. But as a kid, like, it's just they're pirates. They're doing pirate shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was chatting with some friends earlier because I was like, I was not in the park before this came out. Like, I only know this version of Pirates of the Caribbean, like, with Jack and whatnot.
With Jack, yeah.
Like, my version of, like, growing up of Pirates of the Caribbean was the version with, like, The Mist and Davy Jones.
Yeah.
And I was chatting with some friends of mine that are roughly the same age as me. And they were like, oh, you're telling me that Pirates of the Caribbean existed before the movies? Like, again, just
and that's when you tell
things.
everyone to watch Behind the Attraction and then watch our podcast breaking down each and every episode.
See, I just don't recommend to my friends to watch the podcast because I generally don't remember what I actually say on the podcast.
Damn it. You don't talk shit about them that much.
I don't. But also, I don't want to be that guy that's like, hey, you should listen to my podcast.
I don't either, but then people are like, hey, you should start a YouTube channel. I'm like, I kind of got one. And they're like, oh, what's about? I'm like, I talk about Disney shit on the internet with my friend.
See, that's the point where I think it's
conversation
socially
just
acceptable.
It just ends at that point.
Yeah,
no one
same.
gives a shit.
I feel like that's the point where it's socially acceptable. It's like when someone else brings it up, then I will talk about it. Anyways, pirates take over, eventually taking on Elizabeth, meeting Elizabeth. Elizabeth calls for parley.
Before we get there, though, I love that we get the jail scene with the dog and the bone.
Yeah. Or the
now
fact that
knowing
the
ride,
dog,
I'm like, oh, that's a nice touch.
or the fact that the dog comes back in the third movie.
Also that, yeah.
Yeah, we got some great stuff here. They make fun of Jack in prison. They corner Elizabeth, who calls herself Elizabeth Turner, and they bring her to meet with Barbossa, who
She is clearly the smartest person in this entire film and is not given enough credit for being able to decipher the fact that they're looking for Will because of the medallion. So she knows what to say to get herself not dead.
See, I don't think she knew it at first, but then kind of put it together after the ghost pirate scene.
But then why would she have given her name as Turner?
Well, because she didn't want them to know that she was the governor's daughter.
Oh, okay. That also makes sense. See, I thought she just clued into the fact they were looking for Will.
Oh, I think she did fairly quickly, but like she is throughout all of these movies, she is always the smartest person in the room.
Yeah, so much so she becomes a captain. Like
she becomes the pirate
very
king.
much by accident. Yeah.
I love so much of this. Barbossa, especially in this. We eventually learn more.
You can feel Barbossa's like anxiety and just unease this entire time just because of what he's been through. Like he makes himself into I wouldn't say a redeemable villain, but he's at least relatable. Like we all would probably go to some desperate lengths to resolve what he has had to resolve.
I would
through
tell
his
you that
life.
he's about as redeemable as a pirate can get, while still staying a pirate.
I think that's reasonable.
With the exception of the fifth movie, but we don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that one. Or the fourth one. He's also in that one, isn't he? Isn't he like a working for the East India Trading Company in that one?
See, I thought that was in the fifth one. I don't think he shows up in the fourth.
I thought it was both.
Was he in the well? Because I know the fourth was mostly Blackbeard.
I don't care.
Doesn't matter.
I don't care. I can't. Gun to my head, I couldn't tell you what actor plays Blackbeard. Or I can see his face, but I can't remember his name.
Oh,
I know it was. What's his name? No, I can't remember the guy that played Salazar, even though I can see his face. And I should know his name because he's fairly popular.
I think it's it's Ian McShane plays Blackbeard.
Yes, that's the one.
And
then it's Javier Bardem.
Javier Bardem, yeah.
Salazar.
The only reason I can know that is because they're huge names.
Yeah.
And I have
I can see their faces. I'm just bad with names when they're not
in front of you.
I don't know, in popular early 2000s movies about pirates and ghosts.
Can I just say, by the way, more people need to I don't like it, Prime Video, but I love that Prime Video will show you if you pause it, it'll show you all
Name
the
of the
actors
actor
in that scene.
Apple TV does that now too.
I just need everybody to do that. That is such a great that should just be a standard feature.
It should, but the reason that it works, at least for a company like Amazon, is because of the massive data center and data lakes that they own on the AWS side of their business. That they can tap into all this. They're a tech company before they're a video company.
True.
Or an entertainment company. And
I'm just surprised with Disney's resources that they haven't tried to tap something similar. Because they absolutely have the database.
Could. It's just, I don't think they have the tech expertise the way that a company like Amazon or Apple does. I'd love to see everybody try, but we also okay.
Their tech department is very different.
I'm breaking the fourth wall here. You look at the live events that Amazon puts on, both for the NFL and recently for the NHL in Canada, and their live events go off without a hitch. The tech works. There's no buffering. Everything is fine. And then you get the Tyson, what's his fuckface, Tyson Paul fight. And that shit was buffering the entire goddamn time, running at 360p, except for when they showed Tyson's bare ass in his locker room.
It's still so funny to me.
There's a difference between a tech company and an entertainment company. Amazon is very much a tech company, and Netflix is a we're burning money until people stop paying us company. Man, and I think Disney probably falls more in the latter boat than the former.
Yeah, I think
at least at the moment.
I think we make the mistake of often seeing Disney as a proprietor in moving technology forward, but I think a lot of that is more on the Imagineering side than the actual streaming side. That's why I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they could do something like that, but I don't think it's something that's I think
they could if they had the resources to invest in it. I do think with the current state of the economy, they're focused more on investing into the film and the park side of the businesses rather than the streaming side.
Oh yeah, I mean definitely parks. We had a whole episode about that. Anyways, Ghost Pirates. Let's talk about Ghost Pirates. Eventually, at some point,
creepy.
The wonders of editing, this all kind of bounces around and is all happening at the same time. But let's talk about with Elizabeth on board for a minute because it's just a cool scene. Elizabeth gets invited up to have dinner with Barbossa, and it's really a great scene of just reminding you of this may be a Disney movie, but these are very much still pirates. They are assholes. You can either wear this dress and eat dinner with Barbossa, or you can eat with the crew completely naked. They aren't fucking around. We get our backstory here. This is the point of the medallion is one of 882 gold pieces, belonging to Cortez. Because of his greed, the Aztec gods placed a curse on the gold. he died along with it. So anyone who found the gold and stole it and spent it in Isla de Muerta would become cursed. We learned that they eventually become zombies, zombie pirates, skeleton pirates. Depends on.
I mean, they didn't have to remain pirates, right? Like, they could have just gone and been zombies doing whatever the heck they wanted. Oh, yeah,
they were zombies, but like almost all of them.
They chose to live this life. Like, they've made bad choices, and it's led them to being zombie pirates. They could have gone to be zombie, veterinarians or zombie cobblestone makers or the like, but no, they said, no, pirate's life for me, yo-ho and all that.
Yo-ho and a bottle of rum. But no, they all stay pirates in an attempt to return all the gold and an offering of blood. They think that Elizabeth's blood is perfect for the ritual. It's why they're keeping her. We know, though, that Elizabeth is not the person they're seeking. They're actually looking for Will. Meanwhile, back in Port Royal, Will's pissed.
Understandably.
We also get one of those great scenes, again, of like the Indiana Jones fake out, of like Will getting ready to fight every pirate in this town, and then just gets bonked in the back of the head and knocked out.
And again, just so fun.
Will goes to Norrington. Is like, "Hey yo, let's go save Elizabeth. What the fuck are you doing?" And they're like, "Nah, we're gonna just let her be. She's dead."
He's being a bitch. Stop being a bitch.
It is a running theme. Like, I stand by. Norrington is the bad guy of this franchise. And because ultimately Norrington is also just a little bitch boy throughout the entire series.
He does redeem himself at one point. I just don't.
He redeems himself, and then he immediately dies. Which is why it'll be
good to watch these movies again. Well, yeah.
Although one of the most badass death scenes in the
pretty good. Movies. But we'll get there. No reason to spoil future content.
Anyways, Will, realizing that like they're not going to help, goes to Jack. And very easily and simple for the plot, frees him from this prison by breaking down the doors that he just happened to forge.
Again, suspension and disbelief, but it stands to reason that he could have. It just, of course, they're doing that.
Yeah, they staged an attempt to steal the Dauntless, getting Norrington and the crew to go over and try to take them out, and then sneak onto the Interceptor and escape. In a couple of some of the best, like, memorable moments to be from this movie, like them in the boat underwater, like, shocked that it's working, is a Mythbusters moment. Like, I know Mythbusters did an episode on that, and I will always remember that. Or the moments of Norrington being like, he is the stupidest pirate I've ever seen, to one of those crew member being, that is the smartest pirate I have ever seen. Like, Jack really is fucking brilliant.
Again, it's so funny. It's the whole way through. It's great.
Mm-hmm. They eventually head to Tortuga, where they run into Gibbs and begin to recruit a crew. In terms of that comedy, we have another great moment here of him sleeping with the pigs. They throw the water on him to wake him up, and then they throw the second pail of water on him for the smell.
Just for shits and giggles.
Mm-hmm. It really is those like little moments, I think, that make the humor in this movie. They recruit a bunch of...
It's really well written from a comedy perspective.
Oh, yeah. Gibbs especially, I think, is particularly funny. Because he's also he is the straight man character for this. Yeah. Anyways, they recruit a motley crew. Genuinely just
My heart starts playing. It's a good time.
Yeah. They recruit everyone together and then head off to Isla de Muerta. Jack and Will have some conversations along the way, learning that Will's dad was in fact a pirate, bootstrap Bill Turner. We also get a little bit of just the dichotomy between them. Will tries to fight Jack, realizing that Jack is in fact a pirate and will do whatever he needs to do to get his ship back. Jack proceeds to then defeat him with the single turn of the wheel.
Fun little bit. It was great.
The crew head off there, and then they sneak into the grotto, where they see Barbossa and the crew performing the ritual to lift the curse with Elizabeth's blood, and then proceed to fail in lifting the curse, realizing what's going on. Will and Elizabeth flee, taking again one of the medallions, but also weirdly not turning, and head back over to the Interceptor. Jack is captured and locked up yet again. Jack spends most of this movie locked up in a cell, just bouncing from cell to cell. The Pearl then chases down the Interceptor because he needs the blood. They capture everybody again. Will, realizing that it's him that they need, basically threatens to off himself in return for making sure that Elizabeth is safe, or Elizabeth's freedom and that the crew is safe. They grab everyone onto the crew. The chase sequence here is also just super awesome, of them like dumping everything off the ship and then
meaning nothing.
Fighting.
They do the whole like, spin around thing. Like the naval combat here is really fun.
Mm-hmm. We get a great line again from Gibbs of like, "You're crazy, crazy like Jack," really showing like how good Elizabeth and Will are at being pirates.
Well, and also just Will is, by the end of this film, is a pirate as much as he reluctantly doesn't want to be. He does end up that way, and it's
this
it's
pirate
fun to
ass
see these
looking...
little hints throughout the film that get us there, right? Like they're setting these breadcrumbs that are then paid off by the end of the film, which
we'll
is
get
really
there.
nice.
We'll get to the end because God, the ending is so funny to me.
We're pretty close.
Yeah, it's a very simple film.
Yeah, but fun.
But very fun. I think it gets more complex next movie.
I think the third one kind of throws it all to the wind.
Well, they introduced purgatory in the third one, so
yeah. Also, the Pirate Council and all this other shit.
Like, see, the Pirate Council is the kind of shit that I love because it's like,
oh, it was fun.
But it's also me loving like Assassin's Creed Black Flag and having the Pirate Council in that. Beside the point. Anyways, Jack and Elizabeth are made to walk the plank and thrown off onto a deserted island. The same island that Jack was stranded the last time he was abandoned by the crew of the Black Pearl. And the crew heads off back once again to Isla de Muerta. Couple of pieces of note that I haven't mentioned yet. Isla de Muerta is an island that you can only find if you know where it is. Is kind of the whole thing by it. They're able to find it because Jack has a compass that doesn't point north. Rather, it points to whatever your heart most desires. It becomes a bigger deal in 2.
And 3. But definitely they delve more into it in 2 for sure.
Look, I might have started rewatching 2 again already. And I'm on the Tia Dalma stuff at 2 at the moment. So
you need to do Moana first. God damn it.
Moana's going to come out well before this episode. You know that.
I know.
Anyways.
But it just means I got to watch both.
Oh, no. You have to watch 2 great movies.
I've only got so much. I fell asleep watching this movie like 4 times. Nothing against this movie. I'm just getting old. Okay? It's hard to sit there for an hour and a half to 2 hours and stay awake through the whole goddamn thing.
Look, it's weird. I did have to watch this movie in 2 chunks just because of time. But at the same time, I will absolutely sit down and watch an entire episode of Critical Role in one sitting. And those episodes are like 4 hours long. So, I'm weird.
That's why I could never get into Critical Role. Because I just fall asleep 30 minutes in every episode.
Yeah. I'm a weirdo. Don't go down this rabbit hole unless you are determined to be there forever, because it will keep you there. I am a critter, happily and proudly. Anyways, they're left on the island, and Jack reveals to Elizabeth he did not actually get off this island by taking the hair off his back, making a rope, and rubbing a bunch of sea turtles. He, in fact...
You don't say.
In fact, it just was a stash point for some rum runners. There's a bunch of rum on the island. And so what do? They get wasted. Because what else are you supposed to do when you're dumped on a deserted island? They get wasted. Jack passes out and wakes up. And Elizabeth has created a smoke signal. Jack is mostly despondent about the fact that she burned up all the rum.
Which, I mean, to be fair, he knows what it took to survive this island, and rum played a big part in that.
Yeah. There's also a moment there where we seem to get almost a hint at a relationship between Jack and Elizabeth. That's
there were some definite vibes there for sure.
It's like that is easily my least favorite part of this franchise. It feels creepy.
Well,
still.
Given the fact that Depp was 40 when they filmed this, and she was 17.
But also, like, that's roughly about the age of the characters as well in the movie. Jack's not that old, but Jack is still pretty old. We get through that stuff. She sets off a smoke signal that eventually the Navy is able to find and rescue them. We then once again have to deal with fucking Norrington, who is there once again. Elizabeth agrees to finally marry him in return for rescuing Will from Barbossa. Jack trying to manipulate the situation for his advantage, like always.
I mean, Elizabeth is manipulating the situation for her benefit as well, right? She ultimately knows she's not going to go through with this marriage, but knows she needs to abuse this relationship in order to get what she wants.
Oh, yeah. I just love always seeing Jack try to talk his way out of things. That really is how he gets out of everything.
It's the highlight of this franchise, honestly, and Johnny Depp does such a great job embodying this character.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, they head out to Isla de Muerta, which I'm shocked that I'm still saying that correctly, even though I've already said it like 3,000 times. A lot of back and forth for a movie that functionally has 4 locations.
Yeah, more or less.
Mm-hmm. They head back out there, and the Navy begins to set a trap for the pirates, and Jack convinces them to let him go in and convince them to go out. Then they're going to ambush them, yada, yada, yada. But the Navy does not believe them about the curse on the pirates. To adjust the plan, basically because they don't trust Jack, Norrington has the entire crew in boats around the corner rather than on the main vessel, and is preparing that, ambush. Jack ends up sneaking in, and before they are able to complete the rite and drain Will of literally all of his blood, because they are like
not creepy at all.
They're essentially like no more half measures. We're just killing this fool. Yeah. Jack's like, "Hey yo, you should use being zombie pirates to your advantage for this ambush that's being set for you."
One of the coolest fights in the movie. In
return, you'll get their ship. I get the Black Pearl back. You'll be Commodore Barbossa, and that's exactly Barbossa agrees to the deal, takes off, and rather than getting onto the ships, he says, "Go for a walk," and it's badass.
One of the best lines in the movie. To the boats, gents, go for a walk.
Mm-hmm. And they all just walk right into the water, and them switching. Then you got the 2 pirates that are dressed up as kind of a distraction, I guess.
The damsels in distress.
Yeah, the fights obviously break out all over the place. Everyone is fighting and going crazy. Norrington's men are just getting screwed over here. So many of them are just dead. The governor being absolutely useless in this fight. Really struggling just to deal with a hand. Meanwhile, Jack and Barbossa are fighting inside after Jack decides to save Will. He also quietly palms one of the medallions. As they're fighting, we get a great moment here of Barbossa stabbing Jack, pushing him back into the moonlight, and seeing Jack go all skeleton-y. And I'll tell you what, Jack is probably, out of all of them, the worst looking skeleton. And it's really just the facial hair.
It's unfortunate because, main character vibes, but also given that he was in the movie for all of 45 seconds as a skeleton, like totally get it.
Yeah. This fight scene is awesome, though. I love this fight between the 2 of them like going back and forth, in and out of the moonlight, going from human to skeleton. And it still looks amazing. Like, yeah. This is one of those moments where I tell you, like, the CG really holds up. It's really cool. Eventually, though, meanwhile in all this, Elizabeth is like back and forth throughout 1,000 different things. Elizabeth is able to at one point get to the Pearl with all of her men to try to help them go save Will and Jack. They don't. So she goes to try to do it herself. She beats some people.
Doesn't go great. It goes all right.
Oh, it goes all right when she does it herself, but that's also because Jack and Will are almost done with the fight. at that point.
Also true.
Basically, Jack slices his hand to get some blood on the medallion and throws it over to Will, who drops it with his blood into the chest.
It's also kind of like that's very unsanitary.
These are pirates, man.
Still, you could end up with some weird blood disease. They can't solve that shit in the 1500s. That dude's gonna die.
They don't give a shit in the 1500s.
I mean, he does also die. So, like,
Yeah.
spoiler alert.
At the same time, Jack also shoots Barbossa with with his pistol with a single shot, and then Barbossa dies. The rest of Barbossa's crew are slowly picked off one by one, either surrendering or getting killed from the wounds that they were withstanding as zombies, even though they thought that they were going to be fine. Everything comes together. Jack's crew and the Black Pearl are gone, and Will, Elizabeth, and Jack are stuck on Isla de Muerta until the Navy comes and grabs them. And Jack is sentenced to be hanged. We go back to Port Royal to witness the hanging, where we see Will declaring his love for Elizabeth in the most pirate-ass pirate outfit that this man could put together.
This dude went into the store and was like, hey, you know what pirates are supposed to look like? Let's not do that. And instead give me really fancy shit that makes me look like the bougiest pirate in the world.
Look, this man went to the Anakin Skywalker School for the Dramatic Arts, okay? This guy went in there saying, I want to be as dramatic as humanly possible at the potential hanging of my friend, of which I am going to stop, and announce myself as a pirate to the woman I love. Like...
But does he also have an aversion to sand? Because I feel like that would be an issue with being a pirate.
He does eventually.
You're not wrong, actually. Yeah.
No, you could not get more dramatic than Will in this scene, especially with how he like throws the sword to stop him. Like, no, you're not going to cut the rope, which makes way more sense. You're going to throw the sword so he can stand on it. I love it.
Which, it's so extra, but it's also so Will.
Mm-hmm. We get one final great scene here of them fighting and getting away and whatnot. Jack tries to get out one last. This was almost the day that you caught Captain Jack Sparrow, but trips over the ledge and falls into the sea, and is rescued by the Black Pearl. We get another joke there about the pirate code being more like guidelines. Norrington agrees to give Jack 1 day's head start after just everything that's happened. And Governor Squan gives his blessing to Will and Elizabeth. Almost like that this man has been rooting for these two the entire time. And just couldn't say so because he's a governor.
Yeah.
Weirdly supportive dad for a Disney movie. That's all I'm saying.
Honestly, especially given the time in which this film takes place, it's a pretty good example, a good role model for what dads should be doing as opposed to, being bad dads.
Mm-hmm. We get one final shot of Jack at the helm of the Pearl, looking at his compass, adjusting their direction and humming "Yo ho, a pirate's life for me," and then we hit to the credits. What a movie! I love this movie so much.
So fun.
It really is. I also want to quickly shout out one fun little thing. Hey, want to know where the first draft for this movie was written?
I'm going to say Disneyland.
No, this was written in a little town called Corvallis, Oregon. At Oregon State University, where I went to school.
You know what? I can't give you a hard time for that. Anytime we mention Canada, I go on a whole tangent. So
it's one of those things where
you take your few and far between.
Genuinely, I had this note to mention this near the top of the show. It just forgot. So there's my throwing it out there. Not like the original draft of this movie was titled Quest for the Caribbean. It was originally written by Stuart Beadle, who just happened to be at Oregon State in 1991 when he wrote it. But yeah, that's the first movie.
1991. It took them a decade to get this movie made.
I mean, that's the first draft, right?
But even still, like that's it's kind of wild that they stuck with it throughout the years to make something out of this attraction at Disneyland. And I give them credit for sticking to it and finally getting to an idea that worked.
Looking through some of the stuff here, right? Like, obviously, the original movie that was written up was very different. But eventually, a couple of screenwriters had pitched the concept for Pirates of the Caribbean going to a movie in '92, and then Stuart Beetle was brought on in March of 2002, and kind of brought in this old script and really made it so.
Oh, okay, kind of revitalized it a bit.
Yeah, so
Or,
really
reimagined it.
So really, it was a year. But like he originally had this idea significantly earlier. Like we see, I think that's a fairly common thing we see in a lot of these movies, right? Of, oh, I have this idea, but I wasn't able to make it for 10 years because of XYZ.
Yeah, fair enough.
Anyways, yeah, that is the first of many Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Of course, we will be talking about the other two as well. I'm so excited to be talking about these. I love these movies so damn much.
It's so fun, and I can't wait to get into the rest of them with you.
Mm-hmm. Of course, folks, we will be back for those, but until then, Mitch, where can people keep up with us?
YouTube.com/@D+us, D+us on the Twitterverse, maybe Blue Sky or wherever everyone else convenes at whatever point that happens, because that's a goddamn dumpster fire over there on right-wing alt Trump's platform now that he's buddies with Elon.
Hey, yo, Blue Sky rocks.
I haven't really gotten in. I've got it. I haven't used it a lot. I feel like I need to start using it more. Instagram for you and I, maybe a little bit. I'm probably going to be posting a lot of photos there with a baby and stuff coming. But Mr. Mitch George, at Griffy D-Pad, GRIFFIDPAD, all over the internet, wherever you might try to find us. That about sums it up.
Yeah,
hit us with that outro.
Go check out our other stuff. We got plenty of shows up of the regular show and of the weekly show. Plenty of topics to check out there. We will see y'all.
And if you made it to this point in the YouTube side of things, thank you. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that jazz.
Oh, man, I'm so excited about Pirates. I forgot to say that at the top. Oh, well.
Finger guns. That you can only see on YouTube.
Yeah, thank you everybody for listening. Go check out the other stuff. We will be back in the next episode. But until then, be good to each other and have a magical day.
Savvy?